There is a rare, almost haunting psychological reality that some people live in every single day. They don't just walk into a room, they decode it. While the average person is enjoying a casual conversation, these individuals are tracking the microscopic shifts in the human landscape. They catch the split-second tightening of a jaw. They hear the subtle fracture in a voice that claims to be completely fine. They notice the precise moment someone's public persona slips, exposing the raw, shivering insecurity underneath. Most people look at this and call it a gift. They call it high emotional intelligence, a social superpower, or an uncanny human radar. But if you actually possess this mind, you know the terrifying truth. It doesn't feel like a superpower. It feels like a sentence. Because seeing through everything means you can never look away. You cannot artificially switch off your brain. Put on a pair of cognitive sunglasses and pretend the world is blurry. When you see the rot in the foundation of a relationship, or the calculation behind a warm smile, you can no longer participate in the innocent, polite illusions that keep human society functioning. This hyper-awareness doesn't make you unstable. It makes you profoundly, deeply isolated. You are left carrying the crushing weight of truths that nobody else around you can see, or wants to see. Left unmanaged, this level of perception will slowly destroy your peace of mind, driving you into chronic burnout. But if you understand the mechanics of what is happening inside your brain, it can be transformed into the ultimate tool of wisdom. Today, we are going to break down the brutal psychology of people who see what others don't, the traps that drain their energy, and how to protect your mind from consuming itself. Welcome back to Bite-Sized Psychology. Let's get started. To understand why some brains operate this way, we have to move past spiritual explanations. This is raw, high-velocity neurological computation. In cognitive psychology, this phenomenon is driven by two main engines, thin slicing and incongruence detection. Thin slicing is the brain's ability to find patterns in situations and behaviors based only on very narrow windows of experience. Imagine human interaction as a grand theatrical play. The average audience member sits in the theater, looks at the stage, and gets lost in the story. They believe the actor's tears. They feel the scripted joy. But your brain works differently. Your brain is involuntarily staring at the velvet curtains. You see the frayed ropes. You notice the stage manager frantically signaling from the wings. You spot the nervous sweat breaking through the heavy makeup. Your subconscious mind is a 24/7 data monitoring machine, constantly scanning for technical errors in human behavior. While the rest of the world listens to words, your mind is tracking the erratic body language. You are hypersensitive to micro-expressions, involuntary facial movements that flash across a human face in as little as 1/15th of a second. They represent the true psychological state leaking out before the conscious mind can censor it. Think about a common corporate scenario. A colleague looks at you and says, "I am honestly so happy you got that promotion." To the untrained ear, it sounds like standard office camaraderie. But your internal radar instantly flashes a red light. Your brain registered that their vocal pitch spiked. You noticed that the micromuscles around their eyes remained completely dead and static. You caught a microscopic downward twitch of the corner of their mouth, a fleeting signature of envy. Your mind doesn't need to logically analyze this. It happens in a flash. Like tasting a spoonful of soup and instantly knowing it has too much salt. The tongue doesn't debate, it simply reports the reality. But the most exhausting part isn't just detecting the lie. It's what your brain does next. When your advanced pattern recognition merges with a highly developed theory of mind, you strip away the mask and see the other person's insecurity and fear. You look at a tyrannical, screaming manager, and you see a terrified child afraid of losing control. You look at a friend bragging endlessly about their wealth, and you see a yawning chasm of insecurity craving validation. You are looking at the emotional skeleton of everyone you meet. And in everyday life, it traps you in three devastating psychological quicksands. The first trap is becoming the accidental villain of your own social circle, often called the Cassandra Complex. In classical mythology, Cassandra was blessed with the genuine gift of prophecy. She could see the future with absolute clarity. But she was cursed. She would always speak the absolute truth, but no one would ever believe her. She saw the fall of Troy, she screamed her warnings, but the crowd simply laughed and labeled her as crazy. Highly perceptive people are the modern-day Cassandras of human relationships. The cold truth is that human society is not built on absolute honesty. It is held together by a fragile web of polite lies and protective masks. We need these illusions to keep workplaces running smoothly and families peaceful. Everyone silently agrees to participate in the shared performance. And then, you walk into the room. You carry a raw spotlight, accidentally shining it directly into the dark corners. Everyone is trying to hide. Let's look at a modern dating scenario. Your close friend meets someone new. On the first few dates, This new partner is flawless, polished, charming, and acting like an absolute dream. Your friend is entirely swept away. But when you sit down for coffee with them, your radar scans their psychological architecture within 15 minutes. You realize that their overwhelming confidence is actually overcompensation for deep-seated inadequacy. You notice their eyes darting around, calculating the social reaction of their words rather than connecting genuinely. When you gently tell your friend, "Hey, something feels deeply off about this person," what happens? They don't thank you. Instead, they look at you with resentment. They tell you that you're cynical and trying to ruin their happiness. Because the crowd only sees the beautiful tip of the iceberg, while you are staring at the jagged ice underneath, your clarity makes you look like the hostile outsider. You become the bad guy in their story. This tension scales up in the workplace. When one coworker constantly complains and plays the helpless victim of a tyrannical boss to win sympathy from the office, everyone comforts them. But you know the underlying data. You know this coworker has been missing deadlines and using tears to manipulate public opinion. You refuse to join the comfort circle. Instead, you drop a single realistic observation. Honestly, if you had managed your time better on this project, your boss probably wouldn't have said that. Instantly, the atmosphere freezes. The coworker turns on you with sharp hatred. In psychoanalysis, this is a classic mix of projection and ego defense. When you shine a light on the exact reality a person is trying to hide, they experience intense shame. To protect a collapsing ego, their brain strikes back. They turn you into the monster, labeling you as cold, arrogant, and judgmental. Truth is expensive. When you see through people, you don't earn respect. You create fear. You make them feel psychologically naked. And by survival instinct, humans always want to isolate the person who holds their secrets. Eventually, you learn a cruel rule. Your clarity makes people uncomfortable. So, you choose silence. You smile and nod. But that silence creates a huge empty space in your soul, dragging you directly into the second trap. The second trap is the detective loop and the death of innocence. When your mind realizes that it cannot trust what others say, it defaults to absolute self-reliance. You stop listening to words, and you begin trusting only your own hyperanalytical deductions. This is when observation stops being a helpful tool and turns into a toxic risk control mechanism. Because you have caught so many lies in the past, your brain assumes that everything has a hidden meaning. Nothing feels as simple as it looks. With this shift, you lose the capacity for psychological innocence. Your relationships cease to be a place of rest. They become an ongoing investigation. A sudden compliment from your partner is no longer received as an act of love. Your brain treats it as a tactical setup for a future favor. A thoughtful gift is analyzed as a sign of guilt. A text message response that arrives 30 minutes late becomes a quantifiable indicator of emotional withdrawal and a loss of priority. You trap yourself in a permanent loop of hypervigilance. The subconscious objective here is the illusion of control. You believe that if you can predict every betrayal, you won't feel pain when it happens. You use your intelligence to forge a heavy suit of psychological armor. But an armor that is thick enough to deflect every blade is also heavy enough to slowly suffocate the person wearing it. It blocks all real human connection. By constantly hunting for hidden metrics, you fall into confirmation bias. If your brain assumes someone is withholding their true self, it filters every neutral detail to prove that anxiety. If your partner looks down at the floor due to pure physical exhaustion after a brutal workday, your mind jumps to the worst-case scenario: they are getting bored of me. You stop living in the present because you are busy living inside 10 worst-case scenarios of the future. The price of never being fooled is that you can never truly rest. Unconditional trust becomes an unattainable luxury. You are like an architect able to hear the microscopic internal cracks inside a building before it collapses. It keeps you safe from the collapse, yes. But it also takes away your ability to enjoy the music playing inside the ballroom, because every sound is analyzed as a threat. And this exhaustion leads straight into the third trap, becoming an emotional dumping ground while navigating a profound loneliness. There is a unique loneliness that only people who see everything can understand. It is the loneliness of standing in a crowded room, watching a tragedy unfold, and not being able to say a word. Imagine attending a close friend's wedding. Everyone is cheering and celebrating. But through the groom's glance at a bridesmaid, or the bride's forced smile hiding intense anxiety, you know the marriage is built on sand. You see the collapse at the very moment of celebration. Yet, you still raise a glass and say, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." It feels like knowing the Titanic is about to sink while standing in first class watching everyone dance. You cannot warn anyone because no one would believe you, so you swallow the truth. Furthermore, because you are so good at reading people, you understand others' needs before a single word is spoken. You know how to act in ways that please everyone, becoming a great diplomat or the therapist of your friend group. But in return, No one reads you. No one knows where you are hurting or what you truly need. People assume you are too strong and too smart to need protection. You become like a glass wall. You see through everyone, but when others look at you, they only see their own reflection. So what is the way out for a mind that cannot stop seeing the truth? You cannot simply switch off your sensitivity. Forcing yourself to think less is like asking someone with perfect vision to pretend everything is blurry. The goal is not to see less. The goal is to change how you respond to what you see. To protect your mind, you must build strict cognitive boundaries and practice 3 survival principles. Principle 1 is strategic ignorance. This is the art of knowing everything but choosing not to react. You must clearly separate the truth you observe from your personal responsibility to act on it. You see a coworker obviously sucking up to the boss in a fake way. That is the truth. But ask yourself, is it your job to police their integrity? No. Does it affect your metrics? No. Then treat it like a gray cloud passing across the sky. You can see it is gray, but you don't need to fly up and push it away. Leave behind the ego that wants to play the Lord of Truth. Your ability to see through things is a tool for gathering data to make safer decisions for yourself, such as choosing not to work with that fake person, not a weapon to judge or clean up the world. Principle 2 is the radical acceptance of social masks. Perceptive people often suffer because their standards for authenticity are too high. They expect everyone to be transparent. But look through a psychological lens. Why do people wear masks? It is rarely out of malice. Most people wear masks to hide wounds, insecurity, and the primal fear of not being loved. That loud, bragging person is really just a boy craving attention. The friend who seems cold and arrogant is actually shaking inside, afraid of being betrayed again. Sometimes a lie is the only structural pillar keeping a human being from falling apart. Once you understand this, anger toward fake behavior turns into radical acceptance. You see the mask, but you don't rip it off. You simply smile and allow them to feel safe inside it. The greatest form of understanding is not exposing someone's weakness, but seeing it clearly and still choosing to treat them with kindness. Principle 3 is to forgive the blind spots of the present. To escape the detective trap, you must stop trying to control the future and accept the risk of the unknown. When your radar signals that a partner might be withholding a thought, acknowledge it, store it away calmly. But do not trigger a full-scale investigation. If your intuition says there is a 20% chance a relationship could end badly, you must have the courage to accept that 20% risk and still fully enjoy the 80% of joy available right now. Living fully requires the courage to sometimes get hurt. If you focus entirely on analyzing how sharp each thorn on a rose is, you will never smell the flower. Allow yourself at times to be intentionally blind so your mind can rest. When you learn to let go of the need to police reality, your sensitivity doesn't disappear. It evolves into true wisdom. You are no longer a cold X-ray machine exposing every flaw and fracturing your own peace. You become a quiet lighthouse. You see all the hidden rocks and dangerous currents, but instead of panicking, you calmly hold your position and guide your ship through. This level of perception is a brutal gift, but it is also the most beautiful one if you learn how to master it. If you recognize your own mind in this video, remember this: you are not unstable, and you are no longer alone. Among the 3 psychological traps we explored today, the Cassandra Complex, the detective loop, or the emotional dumping ground, which one do you fall into the most? And are you ready to practice these 3 principles to protect your mind? Share your story in the comments below. If today's video brought you value, hit the like button, subscribe to keep exploring the hidden sides of human psychology, and share it with someone who might also be struggling with an overly sensitive mind. Thank you for staying with me until the end. This is Bite-Sized Psychology. Protect your mind, and I'll see you next time.